I've got this list of sevens from the internet. And of course, which is the beautiful thing about having the internet, of course, where we could just Google something and so you can verify the things that I am saying. So, just for it's a long list of sevens. And of course, we know that the number seven as we know, equals two, which is 20 rather. We see that I see it as the symbol of life and death, everything. Well, it's number eight, the symbol of infinity. When we do the numerical value for the word 20, which is what seven, the word seven equals 20. Oh, so we could actually, as we have seen, 2 equals 4, not equals 4. So we still have 8, or even if we did it as 20, it's still 8. So we have this long list, and that tells us a lot about the number 7, that it comes to a point where it gives about building and destruction. This is where we are with number 8. So Joshua 3, I'm not going to read the all the verses as such, but just for the list, we have the Lord would drive out 7 nations. That's in Genesis of there's also Genesis of chapter 1 and Joshua. Okay, so then God saw 7 times the goodness of creation. I think that's a time when God was angry as well. But there again, we speak of God equals 8, and that's the number of building and destruction right there. Okay, so Genesis 2 3, we have creation. That's the number of days of creation. So that is on sevenfold vengeance of Cain and Cain's killer. So there's the we have 7. We also have 70, and we also have seventh. So we are considering that the word 7 is in all of that, which is of course the makeup of whatever it is. So 70 or seventh and so on. So we have 70 sevenfold, or we have vengeance of Lamech's killer as well. Genesis 5, incidental vengeance of ages. That is like the title, if you like. 7 clean animals. The flood starts in 7 days. 7 days fulfilled show the Lord kept his word. Okay, the ark rested on the seventh day, 7 days between sending of the doves, the 7 colors of the rainbow, incidental references of ages again, 7 lambs, 7 years of Rachel, and 7 more years for, I think it was for Rachel again, that is Joseph, who worked, of course, for his wife, labored 14, meaning 14 years for her. So there we see there was the number 14 as the 14 verbatim gods again showing up here. 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. Again, this is the construct of the gods showing right here. 70 people went to Egypt, and there is more to the story of Noah as well in 7, because in taking the animals into the ark, they were in pairs of 7. So that wasn't mentioned in this particular list. I haven't come across it yet. So, but this is something I know from reading the scriptures. So 7 daughters of priests of maidens, 7 days between first and second plague, 7 days of feast of unleavened bread, the Passover of the 14th day of the month. We, of course, again, we see the number 14, the Passover of the 14th day of the month. This is very symbolic of the verbatim gods. And of course, we have seen how the number 7, as we say, comes as 20 or 1 1 representing the same thing. 70 palm trees, and that's in Exodus. Seventh day not to gather manna. Seventh day or is the Sabbath day. In Hebrew, servants release the seventh year. Young oxen and sheep with its mother for 7 days. 7 year of rest for the land, seventh day of refreshment. Eat unleavened bread for 7 days. 70 elders of Israel saw God, the glory of God on Mount Sinai. Of course, 7 lamp or lampstand. priests wore garments for 7 days, 7 days of Aaron as priests. Oh, is that all? Okay. Oh, well, that could be more to it. 7 days atonement for the altar, the seventh day of Israel, 7 days of eating unleavened bread, again, 7 days of rest, no matter what. Another reminder of the Sabbath, seven lamps of or lampstands. Okay, so lots more from Exodus, seventh accents or descents of Moses upon the Mount Sinai. Ah, now that's interesting. I hadn't come across that before. So if there was seven ascents or descents from the Mount Sinai, this is very symbolic of the two serpents or the caduceus going up and down the spinal cord. Okay, so blood sprinkled 7 times to complete forgiveness. Oh, blood sprinkled 7 times in the congregation. Blood. Sprinkling of altar 7 times, 7 days consecration, 7 days uncleanliness after a boy was born. Ah, yes, and there's a lot more of leprosy, 7 day examination, sprinkling of oil before the Lord 7 times for cleansing of lepers, isolating a leprous house for 7 days. And so this is very much like what we've had to do. Of course, have to isolate for 14 days. There's a lot of number 14s here as well. The name of this site, it's just I just pulled out 7 in the Bible, so you get that list. You can explore that. 7 days of cleansing for female discharges, and that's in Leviticus. There is a lot of things about how people should clean themselves, and a lot of things. Sprinkling of blood on bulls 7 times, sprinkling the altar 7 times with blood from goat or a bull. The Day of Atonement during the 7th month, newborn animal with the mother for 7 days, 7 day Sabbath of rest again, 7 day of unleavened bread again, 7 days of offering by fire during the feast of unleavened bread, the seventh day of the holy convocation, day of rest for the feast of unleavened bread, 7 day Sabbath, and 7 days, 7 lamps offered during the feast on weeks, the feast and trumpets during the 7th month, the Day of Atonement of 7th month, the Feast of Tabernacle on the 7th month of 7 days, 7 days, and this is in Leviticus, 7 days of burnt offerings and offerings for Feast of the Tabernacle, the 7 tabernacles of 7 days during the 7th month, the 7th day Feast of Israel, the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, again, this is still in Leviticus, was observed immediately after the Passover of the first fruits, the weeks known as Pentecost, okay, and the atonement. Let's go to the 7th. Leviticus, still 7 Sabbaths within the feast days, the 7th year land Sabbath, the year of Jubilee. I'm not sure how that comes here in that 7. Okay, that perhaps is giving more detail about 7 with the land of Sabbath. Punish 7 times more impenitent sin, and 7 times more impenitent sin. It's a lot of impenitent sin. There's another one again. Incidental numbering in Judah. Okay, and here we have, okay, incidental numbering of Dan, 62,700. And so let's not go too much into this. I'd like to, because we are doing numerology, okay, we can make our references on 7, where we see that word 7. So Nazarite consecrated with the 7th day shaving. Again, there's lots of 70, a bowl of 70 shekels and bowl of 70 shekels. How many times? About maybe 70 times there. Well, not that many. Incidental references of 7th, again, offering the silver bowl, 7 lamps and lampstands, 70 elders with Moses before God. God gave Moses 70 helpers. Miriam shout out of the camp 7 days. I think it was Miriam who had leprosy as well on the so with the plagues. Yeah, incidental references 7 years between building times of Hebron and Zoan. Okay, incidental references again 14,700 dead. So we see a lot of these numbers. It would be interesting to see how these numbers just showed up as well in our time of this, our pandemic or whatever the plagues that we we have endured. Okay, 7 days of burnt offering, seven lambs to begin new year. Seven unleavened bread days and 7 days of feast again. So there's lots and lots of 7 days of atonement, seventh month, the seventh day of atonement mentioned quite a few times. The Sabbath again, unleavened bread again. Obedience to the Lord would cause the enemy to flee 7 ways. So 7 directions or 7 ways. Okay, a nationwide reading of law every 7 years. The Lord will drive the 7 nations. Okay, the 7 priests, 7 trumpets, 7 days, seven and match for 7 times. 7 priests and 7 trumpets and ram's horns. 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets and ram's horns. 7 priests blew 7 trumpets, 7 days, 7 times. Incidental references to 7 tribes, incidental references to seven parts of the land to be divided. Adoni Bezek cut off the thumbs, and big toe of 70 kings. Oh, that's in Judges 1:7. So all these blood sacrifices, and to cut someone's thumb and their um big toe of the 70 kings. Oh, that would be an interesting story to read. You see how we really get on about blood sacrifices. So if there's something that is in our makeup or has been, we could say we have been programmed in that kind of blood sacrifices. We hear it, whether it's with Jesus, whether it was lambs, whatever it is, there's always something about blood. Blood, of course, has the numerical value of 3. And of course, free is there where we want to break free. So I've decided to take a look at Adoni Bezek, which was a king who confessed that he too had cut the toes and thumbs of 70 other kings, and of course was feeling that he was being punished. It is important for us to note in numerology with the number 7 is a cycle, the end of a cycle. And of course, 8 is where we are faced with destruction and rebuilding. And that is very symbolic, or whether it really happened, but in essence, it is meant to be very symbolic, or that destruction of a new creation. Especially, in fact, I did a numerical value for the word thumb, which equals 19, and that is 10. And of course, big toe is 4 altogether, 9 plus 4. So that altogether would equal 5. And that, of course, is the transformation, like I often speak on, like having your Christ spirit or the Kundalini rising. And so let's continue to observe the number 7, because I meant to mention as well in Genesis chapter 1 verse 2, where we see or we read that the world was without form and void, meaning nothing can happen without form. So basically it's about 7. 7 is that which sets the perimeter, that gives things shapes and form and so on. So let's continue to delve. Okay. All right. So 77 leaders of Succoth, 77. That makes sense again, because when we speak of 77, and that's in Judges chapter 8 verse 14. So 77, we are seeing two sevens right here. Although we could do that in numerology, but if we just look at the two sevens, we see that this is symbolic of the two sets of gods that we are the embodiment of creation, the two creations here. Incidental references to seven, Gideon 70 sons, an incidental reference. Okay, Gideon, let's see, I'm just keeping some of these as well. Incidental references. So there's lots of sevens in Judges as well. Well, naturally, because it's Judges, and Judges, of course, are about rules and regulations and taking actions and so on. So references to 700 men in Judges as well. Ruth, better than seven sons. Why Ruth better than seven sons? Okay, I think it might have been begat. I am just thinking that's what it's meant to be. And so let's take the story of Ruth with seven sons, and of course paying attention to the spirit of sound mind. So your roof is that which shelters you, and basically this is like your pineal gland, you could say, or the seven suns is your chakras, and of course the number one equals seven, so that makes you whole. Here, God enables the barren to bear seven, and the ark was with the Philistine of seven. So basically, people, we could see all these sevens here are very symbolic in with the creation. We have two sevens, so we have the soul God and we have the formed god of the 14 gods. So we have these two gods that equal seven each, the soul god and the formed god. So you could actually envision something soaring and shaping, and they actually, so of course they are two, but they also, the word seven equals two. So that is very intertwined here in creation. Okay, so there's a lot about the seven. Paul, for Samuel, fasting 7 days for Saul. I wasn't aware that Samuel fasting 7 days for Saul, and that is in Samuel 31:13. So where we see that there is a creation of perfection happening here. They mirror each other, and that's what we say 4 + 4 is 8. So this is building and destruction here. Incidental references to David reigning for 7 years and 6 months in Hebron. Okay, so Samuel, King David reigned for, in Hebrew, 7.5 years. Again, 700 horsemen. We have David killed 700 Syrian charioteers. The first child of David, Bathsheba, died after 7 days. Oh, so there's a lot to learn even from the list. Seven male descendants of Saul hung. Seven male descendants of Saul's hung. Okay, seven male descendants of Saul hung before the Lord. So again, it's the representation. This is really to show us, because Saul went through the transformation where he also became as one as God's, or you could say Christ, most highly worked disciple. He was transformed to Paul. Being in Paul is actually 23, if I checked right, but equals 5. And Saul was 8. So 8, this is where Saul is actually broken. The 8 is broken. Here we see 7 male descendants of Saul hung. So the 7 males in the numerology here is showing, is also telling that Paul really went through a transformation, the chakras being ignited. Anyway, these are things we can explore more on. 7 years of famine. Okay, the famine again is like you are taming your chakras. You could see it as that. Okay, and we have second in Samuel. Oh, come on. David's reign, we have that 70,000 burdens, bearers, temple chambers, 7 cubits wide, incidental references. 7 years of build to build a temple of God, 7 chains for a temple capital. The act moved into the temple on the seventh month. Okay, here with 7 and 7 days of celebrating the temple. So again, people, this is very much the verbatim gods, or we could see that very symbolic here, even in the kings, because when we speak of kings as well, yes, we have kings, but king is actually number 5, which is like Christ. This is why it said Christ is the King of Kings. So here we are seeing that these are as much very symbolic of the transformation of an ascension, which of course the story of Christ exemplifies all of this. Ancestral of Israel, Mary in the Bible. Okay, incidental references. 7 days, 7 reigns in Zimri. I must say it has been very useful reading this, because I didn't think it had all these so much. In fact, I already picked up quite a lot of wisdom from this. I hope you too enjoy this.